Welcome back to the second part of today's session. This session we will cover menstrual cycle, the entire process, its function and what are the changes comprising the following. Before going to the content of the textbook, we will view the animated presentation about menstrual cycle. Phases in this life of an organism has three phases: juvenile phase, reproductive phase and senescence phase. During the reproductive phase, organisms give birth to offsprings. Interestingly, most organisms display certain morphological and physiological changes during the reproductive phase. Human female, for instance, experiences the phase menstrual cycle, which is a cyclic changes in the genital system during the reproductive phase. Incidentally, the woman experienced the first menstrual cycle called the menarche. The onset of puberty usually between the age of 9 to 12, occurring approximately every 28 days. The single menstrual cycle consists of four phases: menstrual phase, follicular phase or proliferative phase, ovulatory phase, and lastly luteal phase or secretory phase. Each phase of menstrual cycle is marked by simultaneous changes in the uterus, ovary, and the secretion of hormones. For instance, during the menstrual phase, the endometrial lining of the uterus and its blood vessels break down and mix with the blood, mucus, and other cells debris to form menses. The menses are discharged through the vagina as menstruation or menstrual flow, which lasts for 3 to 5 days from the beginning of menstrual cycle. Interestingly, the absence of menstruation indicates pregnancy or ovarian disorders such as polycystic ovarian disorders, or even factors such as stress and ill health. The menstrual phase is followed by the follicular phase, which occurs between the 5th to 14th day of menstrual cycle. During this phase, the primary follicles in the ovary matures into Graafian follicle. Simultaneously, the endometrium undergoes proliferation, the process of regeneration which results in the formation of new thick endometrium. The follicular phase is followed by ovulatory phase, which occurs during the middle of menstrual cycle. During the phase, the Graafian follicle ruptures to release an ovum or egg cells into pelvic cavity called ovulation. The ovulatory phase succeeded by the luteal or secretory phase. The last phase of the menstrual cycle, which occurs between 16 and 28 days of the menstrual cycle. This phase ceases the transformation of the remaining Graafian follicle in the yellow mass called the corpus luteum. The endometrium too thickens and its blood vessels become coiled and enlarged. Interestingly, the endometrium and corpus luteum play a vital role in the early stage of conception. For instance, the fertilized egg gets embedded in the endometrium, derives nourishment, and corpus luteum, on the other hand, starts secreting progesterone that helps maintaining the endometrium and encourages the growth of developing embryo. Conversely, in the absence of fertilization, the corpus luteum degenerates and triggers the breakdown of endometrium. This makes a mark of start of menstruation and begins of new menstrual cycle. Did you know that the phase of menstrual cycle are controlled by different hormones secreted by the ovary and the pituitary gland? At the onset of menses, the anterior pituitary gland increases the secretion of two gonadotrophic hormones. We have discussed LH and FSH, stimulating hormones. FSH that stimulates development of primary follicles. However, the amount of estrogen and progesterone released by the ovary during this time is less, which causes the thickening of endometrium. The release of LH and FSH keep increasing, and during the follicular stage, these two hormones stimulates the acceleration of primary follicles into Graafian follicles. Moreover, LH and FSH stimulates the maturing follicles to release estrogen, a hormone that helps in the proliferation of the endometrium. The increased level of estrogen that causes the anterior pituitary gland to release the surge of LH and FSH. So much so that by the ovulation stage, the level of LH and FSH in the blood are at the peak. This LH surge causes ovulation by rupturing the Graafian follicle and turning the follicles into corpus luteum. The estrogen level in the body too reaches its peak, and we see a gradual thickening of endometrium. However, once the corpus luteum begins secreting large amount of progesterone and the FSH and LH inhibiting hormone, the level of both the hormones drops, which in turn also lowers the level of estrogen in the body. However, the endometrium increases to thickening because in the increase in the level of progesterone. Incidentally, the corpus luteum will keep secreting progesterone if the fertilized egg embedded in the endometrium. However, in the absence of fertilized egg, the corpus luteum stops releasing progesterone and degenerates. A drop in the level of progesterone in turn triggers the menstrual as well as restarts the release of LH and FSH by the pituitary gland. Menstrual cycle normally stops. This phase is called menopause. The menstrual cycle is an important process in the woman body, and it consists of 4 phases which was controlled by hormones released by the ovary and the pituitary gland. So far we have discussed about the menstrual cycle in a video presentation, and now we will see what are the important facts and concepts that is given about menstrual cycle in our textbooks. The menstrual ovarian cycle occurs approximately once in every 28 to 29 days during the reproductive life of a female from menarche, puberty or menopause, except during pregnancy. The cycle of events starting from one menstrual period till the next one is called as a menstrual cycle, during which cyclic changes occurs in the endometrium every month. Cyclic menstruation is an indicator of normal reproductive phase. Just now we also saw different phases, 4 phases. What are the 4 phases? In the menstrual cycle, we have first phase, menstrual phase, second one, follicular or proliferative phase, third, ovulatory phase, and fourth one, luteal or secretory phase. So what are the important points? We will highlight that. The cycle starts, first one, menstrual cycle. The cycle starts with the menstrual phase when menstrual flow occurs and lasts for 3 to 5 days. Menstrual flow is due to the breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus and its blood vessels due to decline in the level of progesterone and estrogen. Menstruation occurs only if the released ovum is not fertilized. So this is very important. If the ovum is not fertilized only, menstruation will occur. You have to keep this in your mind. Absence of menstruation may be an indicator of pregnancy. We have already seen in the video. However, it could also be due to stress hormonal disorder and anemia, or some other disorders like polycystic ovary disorder. Now, let us move on to the follicular or proliferative phase. Here, The follicular phase extends from 5th day of the cycle until the time of ovulation. During this phase, what will happen? Just now we saw the primary follicles in the ovary grows to become a fully mature Graafian follicle, and simultaneously the endometrium regenerates through proliferation. These changes in the ovary and the uterus are induced. We know that we have two gonadotrophin secreted by the anterior pituitary. One is FSH and another one is LH, which increases gradually during the follicular phase. It stimulates the follicular development and secretion of estrogen by the follicle cells. So this is with respect to follicular or proliferatory phases. And now what happens during ovulatory phase? Both the LH and FSH attains a peak level in the middle of the cycle about the 14th day. The maximum secretion of LH during the mid-cycle, called LH surge, induces the rupture of Graafian follicles and release of the ovum secondary oocyte from the ovary wall into the peritoneal cavity. So at the 14th day only ovulation occurs. So you have to remember this. Ovulation occurs at the 14th. So this is very important. This process is called as ovulation. And now last phase, luteal or secretory phase. What will happen? During luteal phase, the remaining part of the Graafian follicle is transformed into transitory endocrine gland. Yes, it becomes an endocrine gland. The corpus luteum becomes an endocrine gland and it secretes a hormone called progesterone, which is essential for the maintenance of the endometrium. If the fertilization takes place, what will happen? It paves way for the implantation of the fertilized ovum. If it does not take place, we will see what will happen. The uterine, if implantation is complete, then what will happen? The uterine wall secretes nutritive fluid in the uterus for the fetus. So this phase is also called as a secretory phase. During pregnancy, all events of menstrual cycle stops and there is no menstruation. So it stops menstruation when fertilization occurs. But in the absence of fertilization, we have here, in the absence of fertilization, what will happen? The corpus luteum degenerates completely and leaves a scar tissue called corpus albicans. So this is very important. It also initiates a disintegration of endometrium leading to menstruation, marking the next cycle. So it becomes a cycle. First, it is already given. We have seen in the video also, follicular phase, luteal phase, what will happen? So in the follicular phase, the Graafian follicle matures and ovulation takes place in the 14th day. So 14th day, LH surge triggers ovulation. Luteinizing hormones is more and it triggers the ovulation process. During ovulation, ova is released and it reaches. If the fertilization takes place, what will happen? If the fertilization is not taken place, menstrual cycle will proceed. Okay, so this is what it is given. Already we have seen. You can see this menstrual phase. So 1 to 5 days or 4 days. So next 14 days you have a follicular phase, and after 14 to 28 days you have a luteal phase. So this is clear, and this is about a disorder which is given for you. If the menstrual flow is not proper, then it can indicate two possibilities. One is pregnancy and other one is some disorder. And one of the disorder is polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, or you can see PCOD also. You can see, you can tell as a disorder also you can tell, and syndrome also you can tell. Okay, so PCOS is a complex endocrine system disorder. It's a disorder that affects a woman in their reproductive year. Polycystic means many cysts. It refers to many partially formed follicles. And the follicles வந்து ஒழுங்கா சீரா மெச்சூர் ஆகி ஓவமா ஆகாம அது என்ன ஆயிடுது, வெறும் சிஸ்டாவே ஃபார்ம் ஆயிடுது. Okay, follicles on the ovaries which contains an egg each, but they do not grow to maturity or produce egg. So அந்த follicle தான் உங்களுக்கு தெரியும், இப்பதான் நம்ம பார்த்தோம். From the follicle, Graafian follicles only will transform into egg, isn't it? Ovum, by a mitotic division and meiotic division. But unfortunately, some of the follicles they do not mature and they do not produce egg. In turn, they will be in the form of a cyst. And this is what we call it as a polycystic ovary syndrome. Women with PCOS may experience irregular menstrual cycle. So this irregular menstrual cycle, I've already said you, has two possibilities. One is the woman can be pregnant or she may have some disorders. Okay, increased androgen level, excessive facial or body hair growth, hirsutism, acne, obesity, reduced fertility, and increased risk of diabetes. Treatments for PCOS includes a healthy lifestyle, weight loss, and targeted hormone therapy. So if these hormones fail only, this problem arises. So if we check and regulate the hormone level in the woman, then this can be prevented or it can be controlled. Okay. So far we have seen today about the menstrual cycle. This is a very important question. Even in my 12th standard, when I was studying in 12th standard, I wrote this question. This question is very, very important. You may think that it cannot be, or this topic is not relevant, but students, this is a very important. Everybody who is studying biology should understand this. This is nature, and this is a very important aspect of reproduction. So one must be very clear about this menstrual cycle, and if at all, if the menstrual cycle is not proper, and anyone, if you are a boy, you can just guide your sister or whoever it may be to get a counseling, medical counseling, or to medical examination. Okay, this is very important. If this is not proper, then there will be a problem in the woman's body. That is for true. So we have a good awareness about this menstrual cycle. This is a very, very essential topic in our biology. I want everybody to learn this, all the phases, and I want you to write in a very, very short note for 5 marks. I want you to write this menstrual cycle and post me the answer. I'm not going to give the notes. You have seen the video as well as the content of the textbook. Take a notes, and I want everybody to write this menstrual cycle, all the phases with each relevant point under each topic. You have to write at least 4 to 5 important points. You know what are the important points. You will write and post the answer to me. Ensure that you study and then take notes, and again you study, revise, and then later write test without seeing, and then you post the answer to me. So this is the task for today's class. Thank you and have a nice day. We will meet in the next class, and next class we will be focusing on the menstrual disorder problems. What are the menstrual disorder? And we will also be seeing about the fertilization and implantation. What are the development taking place in the fetus? We will be seeing amazing things. I hope that videos I will collect and I will show you in the next class. I hope today's class is interesting. I want everybody to do your homework sincerely. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.